Hey guys, Jordan with the Young Turks with TYT Politics. It is Saturday morning. Let me shift this a little bit. Sorry that I'm so up close. I'm in my car. Hold on one second. Ba ba ba. There we go. So we have reached 100,000 subscribers. That is in about 10 months. When I started in when I started in December, we were at, I think, 5,000 subscribers. The channel had existed before I got there, but wasn't really that active. And, once I started, along with Eric Byler, who has been a terrific cameraman, editor, we started pumping out content and doing quality work. Before I give myself a pat on the back, a few people to thank. We have Eric, obviously, who's been terrific, great cameraman, great editor. I've spent the majority of my time on the road with him. We have gotten in quite a few fights as well, which happens when you travel with someone as much as we do. But overall, very, very authentic, progressive, cares about justice, cares about civil rights, economic justice, environmental justice, and he's very well versed on history, particularly African American history. The terrible things that have been done to African Americans, past, present. So thank you to Eric. We were lucky to get Emma Viglin as an intern over the summer. Emma had just graduated college actually. TYT said, "Hey, do you want an intern?" So they sent me a bunch of resumes and cover letters, and I was like, I don't have time to read a bunch of resumes and cover letters, so I just read the first sentences of a few cover letters, and Emma said something like, "My parents are corporate lawyers and want me to do that, but I can't stand corporate America." I'm paraphrasing. Uh, so she had me at that. I was very into that, so we brought her on as an intern, and she learned very quickly. I mean, this is someone who had zero experience editing. Eric showed her how to edit. She learned it probably within a day or two. Someone who really didn't have much experience shooting a camera, she picked it up very quickly. Someone who did not have any experience on camera, but she is doing on camera work as well as editing and shooting camera. She's doing a great job. So Emma's been very helpful. There's people in Los Angeles who have been very helpful from the Young Turks. Taylor Gill, who you don't see much, but he's been on the road with me occasionally, shooting camera as well as editing. He did a great mini doc that we put on TYT Politics about the California primary and all the voter suppression and election fraud that went on there. I think that video went to like 100,000 views or something, but that was Taylor Gill. That's Taylor Gill. You could find his video in our playlist, Assault on Voting Rights. There's Mike Shekels, who is head of technology and all things tech in LA, who fields frantic emails and calls from me when things don't work, including when I try to go live with the show across the country off of my phone via Skype, which oftentimes you probably didn't notice, but I could barely hear the show when they were talking to me. That is you. Top of the morning, Mike Shekels. So Mike is terrific. The executive producer of TYT in LA, her name's Irina. She's been helpful. And of course, Cenk. I mean, if we're keeping it real, a lot of you have had issues with the direction of the Young Turks and how much they cover Trump and all those things. And, I've addressed that. I agree in some ways. I think that they cover Trump too much. But, it's not just sucking up to him because he hired me, but I mean, Cenk is the one who has green-lighted me to go cover Jill Stein, to go to Standing Rock, to go to Flint, to do a lot of other stories other than just the horse race, And TYT has made a very big investment. It's not cheap to send me and Eric and Emma around the country, flights, hotels, food, all those things, plus salaries. This is not actual journalism doesn't come cheap. That's why most of the cable outlets don't do it anymore. So, he deserves a lot of credit. And I think as much as a lot of you might be critical of the main show. TYT is an actual network. It's TYT network. It has many different channels. So I think that there's actual decisions made to not cover certain things on the main show because now they have a political channel to cover those things more in depth. I'm not giving you rationalizations, but I hope that the attitude occasionally shifts. That all right, you're not seeing it on the main show, but at least you're seeing it on one of their offshoots. Which it's not like they don't know what I'm covering and what I'm doing. And I can tell you straight up, no lie, I've been at TYT now for almost a year. I've never heard once from Cenk to go softer on Hillary Clinton or the Democrats, to not cover something or to cover something that might be beneficial to them. I've never heard once on that. And I think you know me well enough to know I wouldn't be happy. And I agree with the people saying I deserve a raise. Start the campaign. So I want to give you a little behind the scenes on TYT politics, how I joined TYT politics. I don't think I've ever really gotten into it. But, before I joined TYT, I was actually ready to leave journalism. I had pretty much one dead-end job after the other throughout my 20s in media. I started out, ironically enough, at Fox News. I graduated college in 2008. So if you remember, it was a economic disaster. I stayed in Tampa, where I went to school for a few months after college. I grew a nice little beard. I looked a little bit like Tom Hanks in Castaway. And I couldn't get a job. I mean, I could get a job, but, selling booze on the beach isn't exactly what I, paid all the money in college for. So I couldn't afford to stay in Tampa. I was paying for it. So I moved home to Long Island. And my father actually had a customer who was a Fox News anchor, Brian Kilmeade, one of the Fox and Friends hosts. And at that time, honestly, I wasn't even that into politics in 2008. I mean, I knew a little bit, but I was not as informed as I am now. I was not as into it as I am now, and I certainly wasn't as progressive as I am now. So, 21, just graduated college, need a job. There was a freelance gig open at foxnews.com. I jumped at it. So I was at Fox for 2.5 years. It actually wasn't as bad of an experience as you would think, only because I wasn't working on the TV side. I was working on the website side. So I was working for a web show called The Strategy Room. Long story short, my boss at the time, who was the executive producer, was pretty much doing other things. So he wasn't really that day-to-day focused on the show. So at 21, 22, I literally ran this 8-hour live show on foxnews.com around the same time. It launched during the 2008 election. Yes, I have one older brother. I'm a middle child. I have an older brother and a younger brother. So I was at Fox. I worked on this show. I basically ran it. I made a lot of contacts. And that's where I kind of realized, got my progressive viewpoints, because you're watching. I mean, I wasn't working on the TV side, but I'd have my TV at my desk watching Fox. And it was like watching the Republican National Convention all day long. It made me want to vomit. Then they destroyed my web show. They made it like a TV show on the web. So I said, you know what? If I'm going to go work, if I'm going to be working on a web show that's basically a television show, why don't I go work on TV? So I went to Fox Business. I worked for Judge Andrew Napolitano, who is, your major Tea Party guy. His show is called Freedom Watch. I was with a bunch of Tea Party producers, and that's when that was a bridge too far for me. The judge, very nice guy. I enjoyed working with him. The producers were nice, but they were Tea Party people. I mean, they had Ron Paul and Rand Paul on all the time. And at this point, I was, hardcore Obama, hardcore Democrats, didn't know much more. And I said, you know what, I can't work here. There was a lot of unethical things I saw. I would write a segment. The facts would be right. Then the producers would change the words. I'd go to the producer. I'd say, hey, you changed my intro, but it's not factually right. And you'd kind of get like a wink and a nod, like, yeah, don't worry about it. And that's when I realized, like, this isn't a journal, I realized it before that, but I knew this was not a journalistic enterprise. Fast forward, I went to MSNBC because I said, you know what, maybe it's not cable news that is not right for me. Maybe it's just Fox News. I went to MSNBC. Within about 20 minutes, I found out, no, it's cable news. It's not Fox. So I was at MSNBC for a year. I worked nights and weekends. It was pretty miserable. Um, it was around the time of Occupy, 2010, 2011, Tea Party also. And although I agree, at the time I agreed more with MSNBC and their viewpoints, it was almost like, when Sports Center was not live and it was just one episode and it just went on a loop. It was just reruns. I felt like I was literally listening to the Sports Center of news. It was the same shit over and over and over and over again with loudmouths who had no nuance. When I would propose doing stories that were a little different than the horse race, I'd get, oh, that's not going to rate. It's not going to get ratings. And I'm a very fuck the echo chamber kind of person, if you haven't noticed. I don't like doing what everyone else is doing. That's why on this channel, I don't cover Donald Trump to the length that cable news covers it. And frankly, the Young Turks covers it. Because I don't believe you add value by replicating and copying what everybody else does. So I was at MSNBC. I was there for a year, pretty miserable, nights and weekends, and I bounced. My career story from there is kind of varied. I went to work at a nonprofit where I was a digital producer. I was there for about a year and a half. I was making good money, this and that, but I was producing videos and I was good at it. I was nominated for a Webby Award, which is the online awards for my work. But my passion was always writing. As a kid, I loved to write. My fifth grade teacher said, "Oh, you should be a presidential speechwriter." It was election 1996, with Bob Dole versus Bill Clinton. Anyway, so I wanted to write. So I did what most people in my life at that time told me was career suicide. I took a $25,000 pay cut, and I went to write full time. So I went to TV Newser, which is a website that kind of covers the inside and outs of cable news. They hired me because I had worked at Fox and MSNBC, so I knew cable news pretty well. So I was there for a year. Wasn't a bad job, was a good job, learned a lot, but it was kind of like, all right, I took a $25,000 pay cut. I'm writing 10 stories a day about nothing. It was all stories like Bill O'Reilly blasts this person or, all this sensational stuff for clicks. So then I moved over to the Wrap.com, which is an entertainment website. And I was there for a year, a little over a year. Long story short, was a decent experience. That's when I met Cenk, my last job. I was writing for the Wrap.com. I was writing about politics and media. So I'd write stories about, say, MSNBC. And I thought Cenk was a good person to reach out to for quotes. Obviously he worked at MSNBC. He has experience getting fucked over by MSNBC, being censored by MSNBC. So I had reached out to Cenk, can I get a quote from you for a story? That moved to talking on the phone, just to, introduce myself, doing an interview with him. So maybe I got quotes from him for like 4 or 5 stories. So I found out that Cenk was going to be giving a talk on his career. I believe it was October of last year or November of last year, so exactly a year ago. And to tell you the truth, I was sick. I didn't feel well, and I was like, I'm not gonna go. And I don't know, something in me. I'm a very cynical person, so I was like, you know what? I want to see if this guy's full of shit because I admire Cenk. I didn't watch the Young Turks religiously, but I had watched it enough. I watched Cenk, and I really admired him. So I was like, you know what? I'll go for a little bit. I'll just watch a little bit. I got to tell you, and I'm not saying this because he's my boss or I'm trying to suck up. I'm just being real. I had never been so focused and so just captured by somebody's story as I was listening to him in person. He gave the story of his career. Obviously, he's a little bit older than me, but it was very similar to my career. Many, many times he was basically dangled money in front of him to sell out, essentially, to just conform, be like every other media outlet, and he, time after time, said no. Many times he was on a shoestrung budget, working out of his car, whatever it was. And I was just I felt we were kind of kindred spirits. We also had the MSNBC connection. He was obviously an anchor. I was a producer, but so I went up to him after, and he knew me from the emails, so we talked. And I basically said, listening to you, it's like a bittersweet thing because I'm so moved by your story, and I wanna be able to do what you do, a little in a different way. But I said I'm a fuck the echo chamber kind of guy, but I'm like stuck in the echo chamber. Here I am writing for a website, 10 stories a day about nothing. And he had said to me, kind of like more broadly, like, yeah, well, we might be hiring reporters somewhere down the line, so let's keep in contact. And to tell you the truth, I just figured he was blowing smoke up my ass. Didn't sound like anything imminent. And I told him, listen, I'll be the janitor, just anything at TYT. I mean, I told him, here's what I think I could do. I didn't want to be a traditional robot reporter, but I felt that I'm pretty aggressive. I'm not scared of that many things, and I think I could be very aggressive. So that was in October or November. I think it was November, actually. A month later, he called me, and I guess somewhere down the line was a month later, and he wanted to have a reporter in the field for the presidential election. And I have learned to make sure you are on the same wavelength with the company who is hiring you. So I said, well, can you tell me why all of a sudden TYT wants a reporter? And he told me, I don't think the right questions are getting asked because the media is essentially in bed with the politicians. So I said to him, amen, I agree. But here's the question. If I'm as aggressive as you're calling for, and I want to be, I'm going to get blacklisted eventually, and they're not going to talk to me. And I remember he said, Jordan, you get thrown out of a Donald Trump press conference, God bless you. And yeah, I think we're on the same wavelength. He offered me the position, and while I was still at my last job, I went to the New Hampshire debate between Bernie Sanders and Hillary Clinton in December. And I got to tell you, I mean, I was 29, I'm 30 now. Doing that debate, this was the first time I didn't feel like I was working. I felt like I had a mission. There was meaning to what I was doing. I had zero people pulling my strings saying, talk like this, deliver it like this, ask this question. They gave me free reign. I mean, he suggested things, but I was able to do my thing. And I interviewed I did interviews at the debate. I interviewed supporters. I interviewed Jeff Weaver, Bernie Sanders' campaign manager. I interviewed Jennifer Palmieri, Hillary Clinton's communications director. I did a live report with the Young Turks from the debate. And after that, the rest is history. I've been on the campaign trail since December. There's been some really, really amazing moments. There's been some really, really not so great moments. Behind the scenes, personally, it's when you have friends, when you have family. I have a young nephew. I had a girlfriend for the majority of this time. My girlfriend and I actually broke up while I was on the train going down to the DNC in Philadelphia. So, not that I'm so great. Every reporter has personal things they deal with, but I was 120% invested in this. So a lot of my personal things, a lot of my family, the friends, I've had to kind of take a pause, so to speak, for this year. But I really don't have any regrets because I've done things the way that I believe they should be done. I think the only way for you to be a really good journalist, in my opinion, is if you are willing to not have a job eventually, and if you are willing to basically be banned from journalism. So for me, I go into it saying, you know what, it's very likely, I want to stay at the Young Turks, that's my plan, but it's very likely long term, the way I report, how aggressive I am, the fact that I have zero interest in making friends or kissing ass to politicians to get access, it's very likely that I won't be in this business for 30 years. And that's okay with me. I'd rather do it right and do it well and get real stories out there and get the truth out there. If that only gives me a 5-year lease on life, then so be it. But I've always instinctually felt that if you're authentic, if you don't talk in a fake voice like I'm live from New Hampshire, if you actually get news through people rather than pundits and strategists, who I think are a joke. If you don't try to script things, whenever people I was about to interview said, can we go through the interview before? I said, no, I don't do that. It's all organic. Don't worry, it's the internet. It'll be fine. If you're real and your stories are real and your stories are in depth, and if you make a mistake, you correct it and you show you're not perfect, there's an audience for that, because people are sick of watching this scripted infotainment on television and reading this horse race nonsense online and in print. I know I am. The only reason I have CNN or MSNBC on is to pretty much tweet negative things about them, because I enjoy it. So that's where I come from. I believe you got to keep it real. Honestly, a lot of what I've covered in the general election between Hillary and Trump isn't what I wake up excited for. But I do think it's important to cover it, and I challenge Trump supporters and I challenge Clinton supporters. Because you know what? Honestly, I'm a registered independent. I couldn't vote in the New York primary, as you know. A lot of independents couldn't. I used to be very pro-Democrat. The Democrats are great, but I've learned quite a lot this last year. So frankly, to me, Democrats are just as bad as Republicans. The only difference is they're pro-choice and better on some social issues. But the biggest problems in this country, to me, are economic inequality and money in politics. And I think there's a lot of injustice. And I consider myself someone who fights against injustice. Anecdotal, but I love Shawshank Redemption is my favorite movie. So something in me naturally gravitates towards injustice and writing injustice. My brother just signed on. You got to follow him on Twitter at JaredChariton. Big Bernie guy, a good guy. My younger brother Jared. So I believe in fighting injustice. So when I see Native Americans having their land trampled, when I see a leading presidential candidate conning people into thinking she's a progressive, when I see Donald Trump pretty much bringing back 1960s level hate and segregation, I believe that needs to be called out. And journalism is not saying, well, Trump's side says this, Hillary's side says this, you figure it out. No. Journalism is, this side is not telling the truth, this side is. Or both sides are full of shit, here's the truth. That's why I did a pretty significant rant yesterday on Standing Rock, which is now up on TYT Politics on YouTube. We produced my Facebook Live, so it's now up. This is very clear cut what is going on there. But New York Times, CNN reports, well, the tribe says this and the oil company says this, so hey, let's go to dinner. This is not journalism. And the problem is, throughout America, some people scoff at me well, you didn't go to journalism school. That's a good thing, because journalism professors teach students this nonsense about you have to be neutral. Never smile, never show what you think, because neutrality is the epitome of journalism. That's the exact wrong thing to teach journalists. Nobody is neutral. There's no human being that is neutral, particularly on politics or anything like that. If you are, contact me. Everybody has an opinion and everybody has a bias. That's why you get into journalism. You get into journalism because you believe in spotlighting the truth on particular topics, right? So the thing is, it's not paramount to be neutral. It's paramount to be objective. So I'm progressive. I supported Bernie Sanders. I'm open about that. However, so that does inform the type of stories I might want to cover, but it does not change the facts. I don't slant facts to help Bernie Sanders or help progressives. If emails were hacked of Bernie Sanders' campaign and I found sinister things in there, I'd be reporting it, folks, whether you like it or not. When Hillary Clinton fainted and everybody and their mother online was floating conspiracy theories, I said, I don't know. I don't know what is wrong with her. If something's wrong with her, I'm not a doctor. I'm not going to interview any doctors on it, because no reputable doctor would go give their diagnosis for someone who's not their patient and they don't have all the facts. So I'm not always going to tell you what you want to hear, because I'm not an activist. I'm a journalist. But the bottom line is, I think that we've reached 100,000 subscribers. I I think because of everything I've been saying. I think that people want the truth, and people want the people in front of them to feel like what you're getting is real. This person is not different off camera, and this person isn't just creating content to get views. This person isn't just feeding you shit you want to hear. And that's what I go for, because I don't mask that I'm progressive and who I support, and I think that's a good thing, because you know what, we are living in a time, as a consumer, if I was watching me right now, I'd rather know where the person stands, and I'll make the decision whether I want to watch, rather than seeing all these ridiculous idiots on CNN saying, oh, I'm neutral, as they do the 25th segment of the day attacking Donald Trump, and they barely cover Hillary Clinton scandals. I mean, you're all smart enough to know that's bullshit. The New York Times is not neutral. CNN is not neutral. MSNBC is not neutral. And what you're getting from them at many times is outright lies, as I spotlighted in the Standing Rock video yesterday. So, what comes next? Listen, I'm not going to operate a channel just focusing on the next milestone. Obviously, that would be 200,000 and 500,000 and a million. I think as we go, I'm not changing a thing, because I've always believed if I just do what I do, the views will come, the money will come, everything will fall in place, because I'm going to do it the way I do it. I obviously hope that there are additional resources, maybe some additional reporters down the line, because I can't work 7 days a week for the rest of my life, which I've been working 7 days a week since January. But and I think it's just good to expand and not have one person as the face. This is not an ego thing for me to be on camera. I was behind the camera for most of my career. I would love additional reporters, producers. Obviously, Emma hopefully will be on the team. And I'll be meeting with Cenk after the election, and we'll be strategizing for what comes next. Don't know exactly where I'll be. It might be in New York. It might not. Don't know exactly what I'll be doing, but I do know I will be at TYT. We've already talked about that after the election, and the struggle continues, as Bernie Sanders says. And I really appreciate all of you who have subscribed, who share the videos, who tell your friends about it. I always kind of thought it was bullshit when you see people accepting awards and say, I'm nothing without the viewers. Yeah, obviously. But with this, it's true. Because, this was an experiment, basically. I had to convince Cenk. Let's skip me talking to the advisors for a little bit. Let's just talk to real people. Because nobody really does that. And obviously, there's an audience for it. So, I'm going to keep doing what I do. Obviously, it will evolve without a campaign in 2 weeks. Sorry to tell you, but in December, I will be taking off, probably for 2 weeks, preferably 3, we'll see. And I'm going to go lie on a beach somewhere, drink a little rum, read a book, not be on Twitter, not be on my email. I will be a ghost. You won't hear from me, probably. Although I've said that before, and it's very hard for me to stay silent. So, we'll see. But I'll be out for a few weeks. And I appreciate you guys, because honestly, I don't do this for me. I do this for you, and I do this to get the truth out there. And I'm a firm believer, whether it's journalism or activism, Rome was not built in a day. Change doesn't come in a day. Change doesn't come in 10 months. But what I am doing and what you are doing, the change will come. It's not if, it's when. So it's really about patience. And I'm discouraged plenty when I'm on Standing Rock and see police brutality, or I'm in Flint and it's still a crisis, but nobody's covering it. East Chicago, when black people are, their housing is built on top of lead. I'm discouraged. I'm frustrated. I'm angry throughout a lot of what I do, but I'm also hopeful because there is an audience for this, and I think these stories will actually, sooner rather than later, independent media will be a better platform to get these stories out and then force politicians to implement change than cable news, because independent media is largely armed by young people, but also older people who are progressive and still care about changing the world and aren't just numb to the status quo and, oh, that's how things are. So the mix of awoken young people mixed with always awake, middle-aged and older people is what drives independent media. It's what's driving this channel, and it's what drives me personally. So, what's next for me? Obviously, the election is coming up, so I'll be covering that. I'm going to be talking to Cenk about going back to Standing Rock, hopefully very soon. After the election, I'll cover a little bit about, the lame duck session and all that. I'd like to go back to Flint and do more reporting there. I was only there for a day. I'd like to be there for longer than a day. Obviously, I'd like to go back to Standing Rock. I've gotten emails about other environmental catastrophes happening around the country that the media is not covering. So you could keep sending me, you could keep sending us story ideas to TYT Politics. You could message us. I read it as best as I can, balancing a lot of other things. Obviously, I'll be covering WikiLeaks, and I'll be covering whatever comes up. I think the beautiful thing about when the election's over is I'll be able to go places for longer because I won't have to end quicker to go to the next rally or the next primary or the next debate. I'll have more time to actually be in depth. So that's the story, folks. It's very sweet. 100,000 subscribers. I'm going to a wedding tonight, so I'll drink and celebrate. But after that, it's back to business, baby. So eventually, I might be asking you for help with stories, maybe crowdfunding for more resources. We'll see what happens. But I appreciate the continued support, and stay tuned for more on TYT Politics. Have a great weekend.